What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another breaking news live stream here on Met Central. Potential breaking news because as of right now, the title, as you could tell, the New York Mets are at least close. It's looking like it's going to get done tonight. They are close to acquiring Freddy Peralta from the Milwaukee Brewers along with Tobias Myers. We're waiting to see what other pieces are in the deal. It looks like Jet Williams is going to be going the other way as long as this deal gets finalized. Maybe there's going to be other pieces from each side in this deal. Obviously, there's going to be more from the Mets side because I doubt they're getting Freddy Peralta and Tobias Myers for simply just Jet Williams. So we are going to talk about it all. But the main thing is the Mets finally have an ace. They finally have a guy, a horse that could go out there every 5 days and chuck the rock and give you consistency. And hopefully, I'm hoping they can get an extension done. Obviously, I don't want to get greedy. I don't want to get too ahead of myself on that regard. But earlier when that report dropped from Michael Marino that the Brewers wanted to get Sproat and Jet Williams in this deal, and the Mets were kind of hesitant about that because I'm assuming Sproat's going to go the other way in this deal as well. If I had to guess, I don't know what other pieces there might be. But when I saw that they potentially didn't want to do that, I was about to lose my shit because this is a no-brainer here. And obviously, I'll talk more about my thoughts and everything. I just wanted to come on here, scream my initial reaction because holy fuck, the Mets have an ace finally. And not only that, they're getting a guy that could slot into the back end of the rotation too, most likely. So, or potentially be a long reliever in the bullpen. I don't know. We'll talk about Tobias Myers after. But before I turn it over to Matt, leave a like on your way into the live show here. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel, especially if you're Met fans, and turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live. As yes, you are reading the title correctly. If you have not been looking on Twitter, the New York Mets are close to acquiring Freddy Peralta. I will update the title, of course, during the stream once the trade is finalized. But Matt, initial thoughts. We have a fucking ace, man. We have an ace.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. Obviously, it's not done yet, but when we hear the reports and the rumors saying that, they are in deep talks on a trade to acquire Freddy Peralta, most of the time it gets done. And I remember the last time I saw like a tweet that's like the Mets are in deep talks to acquire someone. It was Francisco Lindor back in, before the 2021 season started. And then that got done like 5 minutes later. So it's going to get done. Unless something drastic bad happens, like the Mets pull out of it because they don't want to give up Jet Williams per se, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're in too deep right now, and it's great that the Mets are finally getting this big-time ace to lead the front of the rotation, and not only that, but someone to help out Nolan McLean, because we also know that Nolan McLean has great potential. We know that he has the stuff. He is the caliber of pitcher to become an ace himself. Obviously, small sample size what he showed last year, but it's really exciting because, this is going to be the first time since, obviously, if it gets done, I think it's going to get done, but this is going to be the first time the Mets have two really great pitchers leading the rotation since obviously if you want to include Scherzer and Verlander, but those guys were on the older side. If you want to look back towards DeGrom and Scherzer back before the 2022 season started, but even then, when was the last time the Mets had two guys that were on the younger side and just entering their prime? I know Peralta's already kind of been in his primes for the last 2 years, but you have Nolan McLean, this young, up-and-coming, fiery ace that has a ton of potential, and then you got a guy in Freddy Peralta who looks like now, because he's going to be 28, 29 years old this year, it looks like he's finally coming to his own and saying, listen, I am going to be the guy that's going to lead the staff. And like you, I hope, and at least from the reports from the last couple weeks leading up to the rumors that Peralta looks like he's going to get traded, we have heard from the Brewers side that Peralta was very much open to an extension. It's just we know that the Brewers typically don't like to pay their own guys, which is why we saw them trade Corbin Burns 2 off seasons ago, and now it's looking like Freddy Peralta is going to be this offseason. But if Peralta is this open to an extension, I would expect that sometime soon the Mets would get something done, unless they really feel like next year they have a really good shot at landing a guy like Scooble in the offseason. But I would agree, and I would look at it as, let's play this a little more safe. We have a guy that's already in our system. We have a guy that we already have control of. And it's also a guy that David Stearns is very familiar with, because David Stearns traded for him in Milwaukee. So, he traded for him in Milwaukee. Now he's going to trade for him here with the Mets. I would play it safe. I would just get Peralta locked up already, whether it's a 6-7 year deal. Yes, 6-7. I know, it's funny. But, yeah, no, listen, it's great. And also, because at least the rumor right now is, Peralta Myers is going to come to the Mets, and then the Mets are going to send Jet Williams and Brandon Sproul the other way to Milwaukee. Obviously, we don't know if any more pieces are going Milwaukee's way. But I mean, if after all this we're trading for Freddy Peralta, and we also get to keep Jonah Tong, and we have McLean, Tong, Peralta, obviously, I guess Peterson is still going to stay next year. Maybe he gets dealt in another move. I am not too sure, but the Mets, like all of a sudden, we were going from last season where we were looking at this pitching staff being broken to where now it's like, wow, we actually have a lot of valuable, good depth pieces, and that's also not counting that Christian Scott, missed all of last year on the IL with Tommy John surgery. So now he's going to be another piece that's added to the rotation. So all of a sudden, we looked at the starting pitching as a very big weakness for the Mets, and all of a sudden, and obviously, listen, guys still have to perform to their level. But all of a sudden, it's looking like, wow, the Mets might actually have a nice little deep rotation here. And that's not counting Tobias Myers, who could also start, but could also come out of the pen as maybe a long relief arm, or maybe you just transition him into a full-time bullpen arm.
100%. And I want to reiterate this. The deal is not done. It could fall apart. So as much as we're excited, heaven forbid it falls apart. That would just be the worst kick in the dick imaginable. But assuming this gets done, yes, with you, Matt, with NG in the comments, you got to find a way to get an extension done. And I know that Scooble could hit the market next year, but we've learned in the past, from our hockey team, from the Mets in general, even, you don't play the game of waiting for a guy to hit the free agent market and banking on that. You need to play the safe route. Plus, Kyle Tucker, he didn't sign that $50 million deal here. So maybe that opens the flexibility where the Mets say, you know what? Fuck it. We'll give Freddy Peralta an extension, and we'll go out and still pursue Scooble next offseason. Because at the end of the day, we talked about it time and time again that the way the Mets need to become the Dodgers and utilize Steve Cohen's wallet is to attack the A-tier players. The Dodgers do not spend in the B-tier market unless it is a shorter-term deal, like we just saw with Kyle Tucker, which I don't know if you want to call him a B-tier. I would say lower A-level player. But like with Teoscar Hernandez, I would classify in that category. Signs a 3-year deal there, where the Mets need to go in that direction where they are spending exclusively in the A tier. Look at what the Dodgers did with their rotation, even where Yamamoto's available. They pursued him and gave him a ludicrous deal before throwing a pitch in the major leagues. Blake Snell, even though he's injured, he is an A tier pitcher. They were willing to go long term because of it. That's how you build this thing. And then you still have your McLeans. You still have your Tongs to supplement the middle part of this rotation. And then if you're still worrying about figuring out the number 5 starter, I don't care if it's me going out there throwing every 5 days. You could figure that out as you go on. So again, as long as this deal gets done, I'm hoping that they could find a way to get an extension done. And maybe that's why we're still waiting for this deal to fully get finalized. Maybe the Mets are really trying to make this a sign and trade. So if that's the case, maybe we don't even hear about this being finalized tonight, which hopefully that's not the case, because I really just want this to be finalized tonight. But I feel confident that's going to get done, considering we've heard for weeks now the Mets being interested in acquiring Peralta. We've heard longer than weeks. I mean, it's been months now. And really today is where we got the first hint that we heard names more than anything else from that Michael Marino report. We really heard names for the first time. And that is what got me thinking this deal might get done sooner rather than later. We'll see. We'll see if this gets done. And again, if it does, In terms of what they're giving up, I have no complaints about giving up Jet Williams. If you've been listening to our show for a while, Matt shares the opinion as me. We're not that high on Jet Williams, to be honest with you. Like, I get the prospect ranking is what it is with him according to Pipeline, but I think that with the logjam of infielders as is, both with the prospects and the major league roster, I'm not losing sleep over losing Jet Williams. And I haven't, I don't know. He went up to the AAA level, didn't perform that great in the games they played. He kind of doesn't fit the profile either of the direction the Mets are going in with their hitting coaches, where they're looking to be more, a more pull heavy team, a more hit fly ball kind of team. Jet Williams does not fit that mold the way that he maybe would have under the Eric Chavez offense, as crazy as that is. And then Brandon Sproat, I viewed his ceiling as a number 3 starter at best. I think he's more likely to be a number 4 starter in this league, which, listen, you can never have too many arms. You can never, especially controllable arms, and there is value to that. But at the end of the day, when you are trying to win and when you have a chance to get better and get a bona fide ace, a bona fide top 10 pitcher, starting pitcher in the game, then you do what you got to do to get him. Obviously, again, we'll see what else goes in the deal potentially, because I'd imagine there's still more. But yeah, I mean, in terms of those two, Matt, your thoughts on those two going the other way? I'm sure that you share the same opinion, but
Yeah, listen, I'm not too bothered. Listen, this team is trying to compete, and we've seen it plenty of times with the Rangers. Hesitancy to give up on young guys for proven talent, and we've seen how much that's bit them in the ass multiple times. And we don't have to go through the players because we've talked about it plenty of times, on the hockey channel over on Ranger Central. But again, like, you're acquiring Freddy Peralta, a guy that is proven top caliber pitcher at the major league level. Obviously, he's never won a Cy Young like guys like Paul Skeens, like Tarek Skubal, but he's reliable. He gives you innings. He strikes people out. Doesn't walk a ton of guys. 30th percentile. It's a little bit on the lower end, but it's not like crazy like 10th percentile, like where he's basically walking the ballpark. And Freddie Peralta's got electric stuff. He's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 years old in June. And again, when you look at where this team is, like, you just gave Bo Bichette $126 million over 3 years, and most likely, if everything goes to plan, it's going to be a 1-year deal. You got Francisco Lindor, who's in his early 30s. You got Juan Soto, who is in the second year of a 15-year deal. He's 27 years old, still in the middle of his prime. The Mets are in a position where they're competing with the Dodgers. You cannot get hung up on prospects to which we don't know what their true potential is. Like let's be honest. Like, listen, I like Brandon Sproat, but if we're going to be honest, Brandon Sproat's ceiling for me is like a mid-rotation guy, like a 3 or 4. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. You need your 3-4 starters, because obviously, we've seen even with the Mets last year, look how much they struggled because they couldn't get any help through the middle part of the rotation, with guys like Kodai Senga being not good, Sean Manaea being hurt, and he was unpitchable for points of the years. Like, you need those guys. But again, when I'm, just comparing it 1-for-1, Freddy Peralta to Brandon Sproat, yeah, I'm 100% taking Freddy Peralta, and I'm not batting an eye giving up Brandon Sproat, because Freddy Peralta is a top tier starting pitcher at the major league level who, if everything goes right, and hopefully maybe he does compete for a Cy Young next year. And listen, that would be fantastic for the Mets point of view on their side. And then listen, for Jet Williams, listen, do I think Jet Williams, if the trade gets done and it's official, do I think he could go to Milwaukee, and do I think he could carve out a little nice career for himself? Yeah, 100%, because I think Jet Williams does have talent, but again, does he fit for what the Mets are trying to do right now, which is compete for the Dodgers? Because I'm sorry, while Jet Williams may have a good future, in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years and continue on his career, he is not going to impact the major league roster at a high enough level right now. And again, like you said, he doesn't really fit the mold of, what the Mets are trying to do in terms of their hitting profile and hitting philosophy, because we know Jet Williams is kind of more of that, older school type of ball player where he'll hit for a high average, doesn't really have a lot of power, and he's more of a spray hitter. And listen, do you need kind of like some guys like that in your lineup? Absolutely, because I think that's a type of a type of hitter and a type of player that a guy like Bo Bichette is, but Bo Bichette is already more established at the major league level, and we know he's proven at the major league level. So again, I'm not losing sleep over Jet Williams. Like I said, could he become a good player in Milwaukee with more playing time? Absolutely. But again, for where the Mets are right now, you have to make this trade, and you can't get hung up at trading or at not trading prospects just because you're scared that they might hit their ceiling somewhere else. It's a risk you're willing to take. Like I said, trades are always risky for both ends. But for me, this is a 100% slam dunk, especially if you're also getting a guy like Tobias Myers coming back in the deal.
Yeah, 1,000,000%, because I never viewed Jet Williams as having this star potential that some think the next Jose Altuve potential that some think that he has. I don't see it with him. And again, if I end up being wrong, I end up being wrong. But I think he just fits better too in general with what Milwaukee is doing, where they want to get guys with control, and this is their kind of player, a little bit, uh, more of the athlete type of guy. I think he just fits the Milwaukee mold more than he would fit here. And he could go back to playing shortstop there if he wanted to. So he has that going for him as well. But I want to get to some of the comments before we keep talking about this, because of course the trade, like the title says, and as excited as we are by by the idea of it getting done, it obviously still isn't done yet. So as much as I'm excited right now, I could easily go from 100 to 0 in 2 seconds with a tweet. So I want to get to the chat though. Ray saying, yo, let's go. Let's go is absolutely right. Assuming again, this trade gets done. And G saying we really get to watch Peralta hoop on the mound for the Mets next season. What a time to be alive is right. And if this gets done, you have the conversation. Who takes the ball for opening day? Is it Peralta or is it McLean? I mean, I would give it to Peralta, but Peralta versus Skeens in the first game of the season, cinema. But yeah, everyone pretty much agreeing that there's got to be an extension, and I'm with you, Tony. I don't think that if they extend Peralta, it takes him out on Scooble next offseason, because you never see the best pitcher. And it's rare to see the best pitcher in the sport hit the market at the time of his career that he's going to. Well, 1A, 1B between him and Skeens for the best pitcher. But I'm with you. Like, I don't see a world where it just takes them out. I really don't think so. But in terms of the other piece that the Mets could be getting in Tobias Myers, there's a tweet from Ramsey that he put out about his numbers as a reliever this past year. In 28 in the third inning, had a 1.91 ERA, 20 strikeouts. This is on average, I believe. The percentages, I could be wrong there. But either way, had a .92 whip to go along with it. If that's added to your bullpen, that's also great. We saw the Mets add Luis Garcia earlier. Sorry we didn't go live for 39-year-old Luis Garcia. If you were on the lookout for that, don't really have much there. He's kind of Hispanic Phil Maton, to be honest with you. So I wasn't really excited there. But you needed to add to this bullpen on the lower tier, and adding a guy that could be a longer reliever and who could make spot starts for you is really ideal. So that's another piece in this trade that I do like, and kind of unexpected. Maybe there's going to be an actual reliever as well in this deal. I'd still love if Trevor McGill snuck his way into the deal. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But nonetheless, we'll see what happens there. Just exciting, though, as long as, again, this gets done. Which now that's the part we're waiting on, and the nerve-wracking part, because it is going to look foolish if we went live for something that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the breakdown of some of Freddy Peralta stuff on Baseball Savant. I mean,
It's
fastball,
okay stuff.
209 average, 237 expected, changeup 173, 192 expected, curveball 183, 160 expected, and then your slider 157 batting average, 141 expected. Got a whiff rate of 22.8 on the fastball, 35.2% whiff rate on the changeup, 34.5% on the curveball, and then 53.4% whiff rate on the slider. Nasty, nasty stuff.
Yeah, and in terms of stuff plus, last year on the fastball, 108 stuff plus, on the slider, 114 stuff plus, on the what's it called? Sorry, I lost it for a second. On the curveball, uh 106 stuff plus, change up 79 stuff plus, but it's either way, that's what's it called? That's just a pitch that he tunnels with either way, but a legit ace, a legit ace. And again, the main thing is in terms of, the good with Freddy Peralta is just the guy takes the ball every 5 days. Led the I don't know if this is the National League or the league in wins. He was a 5.5 win pitcher though this past year, to put things into perspective. In terms of the game logs too, I want to go through this. He had 3 starts where he pitched less than 5 innings during this past season, to put into perspective how good this season was for him. And what the Mets need? Innings. Badly. Peralta, McLean, Sangam, and Peterson, Holmes. Who's the odd man out besides Peralta and McLean? We'll see if maybe there's another trade. We heard David Stearns earlier talk about how the Mets, not that they're necessarily done with their lineup, but they could be. But maybe there's an opportunity where, you know what, David Peterson could be the odd man out in a trade, and all of a sudden you could add another bat to this lineup. Maybe, Boston's interested in getting a guy like Peterson and Beatty, and then you go and get a Jaron Duran, and you really complete this lineup a little bit more and fill out other areas of the team. Or you just go, I don't love it when you have Peralta because I want to see Peralta every 5 days, but maybe you stick with a 6-man rotation still, which again, I don't love, because Peralta, you want him out there every 5 days. That's how you maximize him. And then even Nolan McLean, I want both of them going out there every 5 days.
Yeah, that's the thing. If I mean, like you mentioned, with Peterson might be the odd man out, but at least from the reports, Beatty is not in this thing, and if you still have him on the roster, he is a big trade chip. Now, listen, the Mets might view him as this versatile player, similar to what Jeff McNeil is. I mean, listen, if they stick with that, fine. But if you could trade Brett Beatty, let's say in a trade to the Boston Red Sox per se, because they need a third baseman after losing Bregman, and you can get a serious upgrade, in the outfield with a guy like Jaron Duran. I'm listening. You make that trade. Obviously, I know that they don't want to logjam the outfield too much because you still have Carson Bench out there, and like David Stearns has said plenty, he is very high on Carson Bench. Like the fact that Carson Bench barely played at all at the AAA level last year, and there's talks that he might seriously break through and crack the major league roster at a spring training. Like, they view him very highly, and like so do we. We think Carson Bench has the ability to become like a star at the major league level and be like a cornerstone piece in the Mets outfield. Obviously, we don't want to rush him too much, but you also don't want to, cement a spot to where he can't break through. Obviously, you also do want to look at it as, okay, in a year where you're competing, you want to get as good as possible. Listen, maybe they find a way to do work where, I don't know, maybe they have like an outfield rotation where some guy DHs, some point. Like maybe Soto DHs a couple more games, and then you can put together an outfield of Benj, Robert, and Duran in the outfield. I don't know exactly what their plan is, but if there is an opportunity to increase the team and make the team better, you do it.
Yep, and it's done officially. Jeff Passan tweeted it. The deal is done.
Boom.
He said at the end, one more big league pitcher, even though we already know who it is. So
yeah,
it looks like it's the final deal is Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat for Freddy Peralta and Tobias Myers.
Yeah, you do that trade every day of the week.
I absolutely love that, and I find it kind of funny. I'm having a chuckle and tagging my friends on Twitter over the fact right now that, was it really Tobias Myers that like held up this deal all day, where it's like, give us Tobias Myers or we're not accepting this deal? I don't know. That'd be just funny to me. Maybe the Mets were trying to get like one of like a Trevor McGill or an actual reliever, and then it ended up being Tobias Myers. But either way, absolutely to the moon about this trade. So now I can update the title. Like you were saying though about Brett Beatty, just to jump back to that point. I mean, yeah, if Carson Bench comes up and fills in that role, I'd rather just move Beatty now while his value's high instead of holding on to him and then diminishing his value by sitting him on the bench. Because do the Mets really value him if he's going to be sitting on the bench and Bench has as much leeway as he does to earn a roster spot going into opening day? I guess you got to see what happens there. And maybe there's a late trade in spring training if Carson Bench is just, tearing it up. Maybe we see something like that with Brett Beatty. But to me, it's just like, I'd rather just move Beatty right now and, get another useful piece to use every day. Or maybe, Beatty just plays first base and then Polanco just DHs. I don't know. But nonetheless, I'm going to update the title now on this as the Mets acquire Freddy Peralta and Tobias Myers. What a trade. What a great trade.
Yeah, I definitely think though, like you were saying, I think they were probably trying to get Trevor McGill earlier. That's why probably the whole deal is being hung up. But it's fine. Listen, well, Trevor McGill would have been nice. I mean, listen, he's not the end all and be all. Again, I would have loved him in this bullpen, but Tobias Myers, fine little backup plan is needed. The main piece that the Mets needed was Peralta, and they finally got the ace that they've been looking for the last couple of years. So I'm glad, I'm happy, and to all those people that said David Stearns didn't know what he was doing at the start of the offseason, I'm looking at you guys because you guys got no place to run. And look, obviously the team still has to perform. They got to win games at the end of the day because results are the only thing that matters. But there was a lot of people saying that David Stearns is a dumbass. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's from Harvard. He thinks he knows more than me. Those type of people like who call it the WFAN. Those people. I'm looking at you right now. I want to see those apologies for David Stearns because the guy's absolutely cooked.
No, they have a pivot now because I'm reading through the replies on SNY's tweet about the trade, and people are saying, "Oh, overpay for a rental and this and that." Like, come on. Jet Williams is not going to be as good as you guys think, and I'm gonna fucking eat these words now that he's in Milwaukee. But I just didn't see it here. Again, if it happens in Milwaukee, sure. I never saw it happening here though. And Sproat, like I said, I viewed him always as a number 4 starter at best number 3. So I'm sorry you do this. And again, if they extend Freddy Peralta, then you really need to shut up because you do this trade a million times over.
See, this is what I don't get because all these people they want the Mets to win, right? They said, oh, where's the big pieces? Where's the big moves? Where's the starting pitcher? Where's the big bat, to help round out this lineup? And then all of a sudden, all these moves get made, and then it's too much. It's too much. How could you trade Jet Williams? How could you trade Brandon Smoke? People, do you want to win or do you not? Like it's as simple as that. Like I mean, come on. Like be happy for once. Yes, I get it. Like I said before. At the end of the day, we need to see results, and we need to see the Mets go out there on the diamond later in a couple months and win games. But you can't have your cake and eat it both. Like, Freddy Peralta is an elite level starting pitcher. Like, you are not giving up much. It's like, again, do you want to win or do you want a prospect hug? Which one is it? You can't have it both ways. And this is a fantastic trade for the Mets. I don't care what anyone says, and I wouldn't doubt if they do get an extension in place. Hopefully they get an extension done before spring training starts because most of the time we do see that players that, before the season starts and before spring training starts, they do want to get their extensions done and before with, so they don't have to worry about come in. They don't have to worry about it during the season because that can kind of hamper you a little bit. But again, I would expect that an extension will get done, at some point, whether it's before spring training or whether it's before the first game on opening day before the Pirates, because I know back in 2021, Lindor signed his extension like a day or 2 days before the Mets kicked off their season in Philly. So, but yeah, this is a great trade. And again, like people saying they overpaid, they did not overpay. They paid what is necessary to compete with the Dodgers at this point, and that's what they're doing. So
Yeah,
I don't want to hear no complaining.
that's the thing. You can't have it both ways and say, "Oh, David Stearns does nothing, this and that," and then when he does something, "Oh, it's no good." They gave up prospects that I love because MLB Pipeline says that they're good prospects. Like, stop playing both sides of the fence here. But the deal is done. Um, yeah. Again, for an ace, you do this all the time. And like you said, yeah, this has to be done before opening day, an extension if they're going to get that in place because players do not want to negotiate in season. So, it's going to be like that Lindor thing where you could set the calendar to opening day, and that's probably your unofficial deadline for an extension to be done. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait until the off season.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this is the great thing too. Just when you look at comparing, like the Mets innings pitch, the Mets innings pitchers leaders last year, Peterson 168.2, Holmes 165.2, Senga 113.1. They only had three starters reach over 100 innings. Add Freddy Peralta, that's four, and he cleared it by a lot because, like I said, Peterson was all the way down at 168 and 2/3, and Peralta was at 176 and 2/3. So they needed innings. They got an innings eater, and they got an innings eater who also gives you quality. So excellent trade by David Stearns and the New York Mets. A plus trade.
And this is way better than getting Framber on the free
Yeah.
agent market, in my opinion. Like, not even a conversation.
Mhm.
Just to read the numbers from last year in case, you want to hear them again and hear more of them. 5.5 win player, 17-6 record. Not that I care about records for pitchers, but it is, something of note when you are pitching to a 2.70 ERA. Made 33 starts last year. He has been consistently making 30 plus starts for the past 3 years and hit 27 starts in 2021 over the course of 176 and 2/3 innings, allowed 53 runs and struck out 204 batters. I don't know where that would have ranked on the Mets starting pitching staff. I'd have to imagine that. Well, I shouldn't say I don't know where. I know it's number one, but I don't know what the margin is between him and the next best pitcher for strikeouts on the starting pitching staff last year. 154 ERA plus a 3.64 FIP, which doesn't scare me because at the end of the day, you see the production every single year. And also the Mets have a pretty good middle, they've shored up their up the middle defense the entire offseason to where I am not worried about that one bit. 6.3 hits per nine, 1.1 home runs per nine, 3.4 walks per nine. That's the part where you don't love. You don't love how many walks he gives up, but I don't care when he's striking out nearly 11 batters per nine. So, yeah, and he finished fifth in Cy Young voting as well. So, again, this is just sexy. This is just hot. Like, I gotta say it. Maybe they still add to the rotation too. And, like I've been saying, like I said with Peterson, maybe you move Peterson, maybe you move one of these other starters and you still sign one of these mid-tier free agents to go along with this just to, shore up the innings a little bit more. But this is it's just a fucking huge sigh of relief here that they actually have someone that can make 30 starts. And I'm trying to get the stats on the fly here of the pitching numbers I was looking for. Yeah, so here you go. The difference between Freddy Peralta and David Peterson, who was actually first on the Mets in strikeouts last year with 150, compared to Freddy Peralta's 204. What a difference. What a difference.
Well, I mean, even I got it pulled up right here, but and this is not strikeout numbers, but this is strikeouts, per nines. So David Peterson last year, 8 strikeouts per 9. Freddie Peralta, 10.39. So almost a 2.5, almost a 2.5 strikeout increase. Freddie Peralta, 3.36 walks per 9. David Peterson, 3.47 walks per 9. And then Cato walks, a little bit more in favor of Peterson, 2.3. Oh, no, well, yeah, 2.31 for Peterson, and then 3.09 for Freddie Peralta. But the strikeout numbers are just insane. I mean, even when you compare it to like other guys, I mean, Senga only had an 8.66 strikeout per 9s. Holmes only had a 0.1 strikeout per 9s. Canning 8.25. McGill, even though that was small sample size, 11.72. I mean, freaking Diaz had a 13.30. I mean, freaking Peralta as a starting pitcher is all the way up at 10.39. So I mean, just the difference in terms of just quality and overall impact that Peralta's gonna have on this pitching rotation is just gonna be crazy. And then the whip as well, 1.08 whip. So
Yeah. Now they actually, again, have a legit ace. Tobias Myers included in the trade as well. Yes, Tobias Myers is in the deal. Probably more ideal to have, like I mentioned before, in the bullpen based on what we saw, the numbers. I read the numbers off before for what it was. Oh my God, Fangraphs updated. That's so cute. But very friendly as well. Very friendly. But I think he had like a 1.9 ERA it was or something, 1.91 ERA as a reliever. I might have messed that up, but either way, you add a swingman that could make spot starts if you need, because Kodai Senga's due for an injury at some point. David Stern said it himself. So you could always just put Tobias Myers in if you need to, or have him come out of the bullpen on a day where your starters, because we know the starting pitching staff, the rest of them, outside of Peralta, McLean, they're not giving you more than 5 innings usually. So now you could have Tobias Myers come out of the bullpen, give you a couple of innings to help bridge your way to the back end of that bullpen, and again, hopefully give you some decent innings. There are some things that are interesting about him. I mean, he doesn't walk a lot of batters. He has good extension. Maybe there's something they can unlock with him in this pitching lab. I'm not going to sit here and play pretend, celebrate Halloween in January, but maybe there is something that they could find under the hood wise. I'd have to do like a little bit of a deeper dive on that, but maybe there's something there they could find to make him an even better pitcher. I mean, he has, looking at the stuff plus, he does have pitches that grade out well. His fastball grades out above league average. When you look at the splitter, it's above average. The changeup is above average, even though he rarely throws it, in terms of stuff plus. So maybe it's about limiting the arsenal. And if you're going to convert him to a full-time reliever, you could limit the arsenal a little bit to where, he's throwing just half of that arsenal. Maybe that's what the direction they go in is. Maybe that's what he did as a reliever. I'd have to, again, do a deeper dive on that. But we'll see what happens there. Because I like that too. I like adding another pitcher into the mix here. I do want to see. I'll let you jump in if you have any other, Tobias Myers thoughts, Matt. But I'm gonna pull up how much control he has left while you do.
yeah, I was gonna say because I mean, just looking at the Baseball Savant breakdown, I mean, his fastball and his cutter both got destroyed last year. Like 313 batting average, 314 expected on the four seamer, and then a 448 batting average, and then a 337 expected batting average on the cutter. So maybe they could kind of like, I don't know, like maybe throw one of them out, maybe work on the grips of one of them a little bit, maybe try to improve the movement to make it not as hittable. Because looking at the breaking stuff, I know the changeup he didn't throw a ton, but I mean the slider and the split finger, they do have good numbers on that. 167 batting average, 239 expected, 108 average on the changeup, and then 117, or sorry, on the split finger, 108 batting average, and then 117 expected batting average on that split finger. And he does get a decent amount of whiffs on that, 39.4% whiff rate on that split finger. So I think he just kind of has to make a change, and we'll see what happens when the Mets do get him in the pitching lab, whether they decide to get rid of one of those pitches in terms of the four seam or the cutter, or maybe they kind of look to maybe kind of combine it and look to maybe work on the grip or maybe the movement on one of those pitches just to make it a bit more deceiving to the opposing batters. But there is, there is something you could definitely do with Tobias Myers to make him, a weapon out of the bullpen. Again, it's more depth, it's more arms. You can never complain about, that. And then, the usage 40, because he do the four seamer the most out of any pitch. So again, maybe you have to make some slight adjustments to that pitch to just make it a bit more unhittable and a bit more harder for opposing batters to pick up. But just fantastic trade. I'm on cloud nine right now, over the moon.
Yeah, I think the change that, honestly, just looking at it, that they should probably try to up the changeup usage just to tunnel the pitches a little bit better. That's the thing that I'm kind of looking at in that regard. But we'll see what changes they end up making there. And in terms of control, he's not a free agent until 2031. So you had a controllable reliever that could make some spot starts for you. Slam dunk there. Absolute slam dunk to add that into the deal. And again, I'm surprised they were even able to get another piece in this deal, because I really thought that it was just going to be Freddy Peralta for Sproat and Jet. Like that's where I thought the trade was going to be. At most, maybe the Mets would have got like a lower end prospect back, but they get themselves a major league caliber pitcher, which, again, you take that, especially when you're losing one that has control. To be honest with you, you can make an argument that he's just taking a similar role to what Sproat would have had.
Yeah, the good thing now, looking, at this whole rotation in general, because you have McLean and you have Peralta. Those are your 1-2. Those are the guys that's going to lead the rotation throughout the whole year. You have Holmes, who pretty much is a solid number 5 guy. A guy's going to take the mound every 5 days, and he's just going to be reliable. Some starts maybe won't be like pretty and everything, but when you have to rely on Clay Holmes, he'll get through a good start. And then really, the thing that hurt the Mets last year was, those lack of reliabilities from the 3-4 spots in terms of starting pitchers. Well, now you got David Peterson, you got Sean Manaea, which now you don't have to rely on him as heavy, so you could kind of maybe work him in a bit more easier to this year. You have Kodai Senga still, and which now that you have an abundance of starting pitchers, you can now kind of easily work a 6-man rotation and allow him to get more rest in between starts, so he's a bit more fresher and he's a bit more on point for, for the next start. And then also the big thing, like I mentioned, you got Christian Scott coming off the IL last year, and you have Jonah Tong. And the great thing about this is it kind of fits very, very much similar to Carson Bench, to where like with Carson Bench, the whole thing for this offseason was you didn't want to put a ton of pressure on him coming into spring training for him to have to crack the major league roster from day one. Same thing with Jonah Tong now. Now Tong, because Peralta's here and you have a bunch of depth now in front of him, he doesn't have to feel as much pressure. He could go down to AAA. He could go down to Syracuse. He could work out the walk issues. He could look at incorporating a couple more pitches, 1 or 2 pitches to his arsenal, to help, tunnel, a couple pitches like the slider, the curveball, the fastball. So, and listen, Tong could come in like I said, he could come up like late May, early June, July, maybe at the latest, and he could come in and have another instant impact, on the rotation coming through the midway point of the season. So, and listen, we know we know the good old cliche in baseball. You can never have enough arms. This is, like I said, and like I keep reiterating, it's a great trade all around, and I like this trade a lot for, especially the Jonah Tong point of view, where he could just go down to AAA, start the year, and he could just work on his game, work out all the kinks. So again, it's just fantastic all around.
This also makes it the next in a series of culture-changing moves. But yeah, I definitely agree with your point about Tong because I don't want it to be, and this is where I still want them to add another bat, just because of the bench standpoint. I don't want them to have to put themselves in a spot where these kids have to be the saviors again, because last year that was just like, yeah, go out there and be the savior, Jonah Tong and Noah McLean, Brandon Sprout. I don't want that to be the case with Benj either, where I get Stearns is high on him, and at the end of the day, we'll see, if it ends up working out. But I don't know. I just would rather a soft landing for these guys a little bit more. I don't mind because I don't mind over marinating these guys, to be
No.
honest with you. I think that it's honestly better if you do over marinate these guys a little bit. But this also goes back to the comment before that. I forgot who it was that commented it about, who the odd man out is in this rotation. It was Ray with the comment. If Tong has a good spring training, that really opens the conversation of what do you do at that point? And it's a good problem to have, but it opens the conversation of, do you just bite the bullet on Senga and cut him? Is there a last minute suitor you could find? Do you trade Peterson to add more to the offense, like I mentioned before? Do you maybe, I don't know, move Clay Holmes back to the bullpen, which you could do. I wouldn't love it because I think Holmes was their most reliable starter last year. So I don't know. There's like that side of it to it. Does Sean Manaea maybe go to the bullpen? Because he had success in the bullpen in previous years. He'd be an expensive reliever at that point. But, at the end of the day, you got to put him in the role that will be best for him. And if he's not 100% healthy still going into this year with the loose body in his elbow, I don't mind if they go the route of, moving Manaea in the bullpen. But that's, again, if Tong wins a spot over in spring training, this is a great problem to have then all of a sudden, because then that means if Tong's ready to go, then you're talking about this team really having a good 1-2-3 at the top of the rotation. And then Clay Holmes, who would be a perfect number 4 starter compared to being, where he's probably listed right now as like the number 3 guy. And then David Peterson slots down as your number 5 starter. And all of a sudden, I mean, it just changes the entire dynamic where there's less pressure on, the guys like Peterson and Holmes to where they could just go out there and pitch like lower end guys, which is what they actually are. And, as much as we were critical of them last year, it's because they were put in roles that they shouldn't have been in.
I mean, even the thing you could kind of look at, and the Mets kind of experimented with it at points of last year towards the end of the season. This was more kind of because they were forced into it, not because they really wanted it to. But maybe there's some situations where you look at it because you have an overabundance of starting pitchers. Maybe there are a couple games where you're kind of overusing your bullpen a little bit. There's points where maybe you could rest the bullpen a little bit and you could go Holmes, let's say he starts the game, he goes 5 innings, and then you could close out the game with Manaea only going 4 innings. There are plenty of options you could go with. You could also do that with Senga maybe to where, if he needs a little bit of a rest, you could start him the first 3 innings, then, or Manaea or Holmes, they could follow him out of the bullpen. There is options you could do with this. I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite number 1 go-to, but it is an option. And the more options you do have with the starting rotation, the better. And obviously, like I said, we'll still see what happens. Maybe they do move one of these guys, like a Peterson. Maybe they can find another team to trade for Senga. I don't know what's going to happen, but for now, at least there's an overabundance of starting pitchers, and again, can't complain about that.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, which is something that, again, they didn't have last year. And who knows, maybe they acquire more, because we heard talks about, I know that, fans might laugh at this, but we did hear talks about Griffin Canning coming back, and, you had him. That's another option that can make starts. So, yeah, we'll see where it ends up going. Stearns haters in shambles. Nope, they're shifting the goalpost again. Now it's too much for a rental because you can't win with these guys. Teams trade top prospects for rentals at the deadline all the time. The Mets haven't traded a top prospect since PCA. this year is a damn great trade. And not only are you right about the fact that they trade for rentals at the deadline, but they also this is better because you're getting the full year of Peralta. Because um I was talking to Nico in our group chat earlier. We were talking about the lineup and everything, and you know, I get the point about you could crawl to the deadline with the lineup you have, but to me, it's like I would just rather address the issues now because then teams have that leverage over your head. Where if the Mets did wait for the deadline to maybe get Freddy Peralta, then the Brewers had leverage to where it's like, yeah, you got to give us Jonah Tong because you need an ace really badly, and we could just hold him. So there is that side to it too, where you get your work done early as well while there's less leverage.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, look, even like, listen, I think with the lineup, while I would like one more piece, obviously the piece and the player who they're going to acquire, whether it's through trade, whether it's maybe they sign a guy like Aiden Suarez, it obviously has to make sense, and you have to be smart with what you're giving up, and also what type of contract you may be taking on, or maybe how he's going to fit into the role. I would be okay with them taking this line into opening day. I wouldn't like love it per se. I wouldn't be over the moon, but I could at least accept it. And then maybe and then look, maybe even because sometimes trades come out of nowhere. Maybe there is some type of star player that comes available like midway through the season, like in May and June. I'm pretty sure we saw Rafael Devers last year get traded like around like early June. And I'm not saying the Mets are going to trade for that type of player, but you never know what type of trades pop up here and there. So, like I said, for me, would I rather them just get someone right now and just fill out this roster and just make it really good going into the season? Yes, but we also have to see what the market is looking like because if the Red Sox aren't interested in trading Jarren Duran right now, and maybe they don't like the pieces what the Mets are offering, well, listen, the Red Sox don't have to trade Jarren Duran, right? But like I said, we'll see what happens. For now, I like the lineup. Like I said, I wouldn't. I would still like to maybe add one more piece, but like I said, that all depends on what the market is right now around these guys.
Yeah, I mean that part I agree. Like you shouldn't overpay if you have to. That's other context. But just to like go back to this point as well, um, the Mets gave up way less in this trade than the Red Sox gave up to get Garrett Crochet. And I know Crochet is the better pitcher, so I'm not trying to, sit here and act like he's not. But I'm hoping that they could get an extension done. I really hope, like the Red Sox did with Crochet, because I still look back at that and say the Mets really fucked up not landing Garrett Crochet. This could be your way of salvaging the fact that you didn't. So I'm really hoping that by tomorrow, even, we hear about an extension. If not, worst case, let it happen by spring. I mean, they have time now that he's in the building and now that he gets a taste of what it's like to be here. We'll see. And I'm with you, right? Like I still get this feeling they're going to do something else, and I could be very wrong, but I really get this feeling that something else is on the horizon, whether it's to get, one more back end of the bullpen piece, whether it's getting one more piece for this lineup. Maybe I'm wrong though, but at the end of the day, the one thing I'll say is the Mets got their heavy work done of the offseason, and that's the good news, is that if it's a luxury, because David Stearns even said it, that you'll never stop looking. But now at this point, you could view it as a luxury if they do acquire another big piece, whether it's for the rotation. Let's just speak hypotheticals, play pretend, and say Joe Ryan is available and the Mets are able to get him. You could look at that as a luxury now, to where they go out and get him, or they get Duran. That's more of a luxury than necessarily a need, because now it's just really, okay, how can we fill out the bench a little bit more, which I don't know if they're going to make that many changes. I feel like they're probably content with where they're at with the bench. That's why I think, like, you got to add one more bat to this lineup. Like, they need another lefty, I still feel like. But this rotation, you have enough arms to survive going in. it would be nice to add one more maybe. The bullpen's really where I still would like to see them make one more add or two because this bullpen still feels very empty. But again, they got the heavy work done, and that's what's good about this. You got your ace, you got your star third baseman now. You got another good piece for the middle of the lineup in Polanco. You got your back end of the bullpen solidified with Williams and Weaver. So the heavy work is done, and that's the good news.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy the turnaround, right? Because we were here literally sitting last Thursday. Kyle Tucker signs with the Dodgers. The Mets really don't have and like I said, they still have plenty to do. And then all of a sudden, within the span of a couple days, the Bichette signs. They trade for Luis Robert. They trade for Freddy Peralta and Tobias Marstein. And then all of a sudden, it's like, wow, like really quickly. And I know everyone loves to call Davidson Sleepy Stearns. Stearns ain't sleeping too much because he made a late move last night. He made a late move tonight. Obviously, the Bo Bichette one was got done in the morning on Friday, but Stearns is moving quick. And then, like you said, we still have a couple more weeks till pitchers and catchers report. I believe it's around like 23 something days. The Mets could still make plenty of moves, and I agree. Look, if they could add, let's say, a Griffin Canning type, a guy that's a long man, a guy that could also make a couple spot starts to maybe pair along with Tobias Myers, plus you add one more bat, a lefty, I hope. I mean, all of a sudden, this team is looking like, again, not on Dodgers level, but it's a team that's like, okay, this team could really go toe-to-toe with multiple teams in the National League, and they could, maybe make a run if everything breaks right. Because this is the other thing that the Mets improved on. Not only have they added names, but they've added those tools which these Mets teams in the past have lacked. Again, speed, defense, clutch hitting, contact hitting, power hitting. The Mets have improved on so many different fronts, and then not only that, but the coaching has improved on top of that. Obviously, like I said, we still need to see results, but on paper, this Mets team is better than what it was last year, and that's even at the start of the year. I'm not even counting where the team finished last year because the team was freaking in shambles at the end of the year by the time they lost that final game in Miami. Going into this year, and this is not even counting the additions they still might make. This team is better than last year's team going into opening day.
Yeah, last night was it, or 2 nights ago, whenever it was that we yeah, it was last night when we went live with Robert. I said this would be an 84 to 86 win club. Now you could sell me. Now you could sell me on the idea that they could win 90 games. I still think that they're right at that cusp. I'm not going to smash the over on 90 wins. I think they're sitting probably at 89 to 91 wins now that they got Freddy Peralta. But yeah, I mean, you add just, I just want to see one more piece for this lineup because I don't know. To me, I would just feel so much better if Polanco's hitting fifth. Like, I can't explain what it is. I just would feel better if this lineup had that depth to where you could move Polanco into that 5 spot and then everything shifts down. But we'll see. There's still some fun relievers out there too that the Mets could maybe go out there and acquire. Not gonna lie, a deal that I would have done. I know that it doesn't really fit what the Mets need necessarily because he's probably more of a DH type, but that Yohan Moncada deal I maybe would have done if I was the Mets. $4 million for a switch hitting DH potentially. That could have been intriguing, but he also is injury prone, so I get it. I'm not gonna kill Stearns over it like most Met fans want to kill Stearns. Which makes no sense because what other team has made as many moves as the Mets this offseason? I was going through that with my brother earlier, and it's just like no other team has made as many moves. Meanwhile, Met fans calling him Sleepy Stearns. But
I mean, listen, this is what we wanted, right? Like we said at the end of the last year when they collapsed that they could not come back and rerun the same team that they had last year. Like you just couldn't. Especially with not only the collapse last year, but 21, 22, 23, even beginning of the 2024 year before they went on their run. Like, that again, that core was rotten, and they show that they could not win on multiple occasions. So they had to make the moves, and Stearns is pretty much. It's like we were talking about it last night in the stream with the lineup. I mean, this lineup is totally different. I mean, you got 4 brand new hitters on this lineup, and then number 5 with Carson Bench, because he might crack the major league roster. And again, maybe they make another move. That's 6 new pieces added to this lineup.
You know what move you could sell me on that you couldn't have sold me on earlier in the offseason to finish out this like lineup bench? And I know I was just talking about how I would like Polanco to hit lower in the lineup a little bit, but you could sell me on the Lars Nootbaar idea now compared to what you could have earlier in the offseason. Because I think he's, again, I really think you got to add a lefty into the mix here. The only problem is then, is Tyrone Taylor gone at that point? Because then you kind of do have, although Brett Beatty, I guess, could move back to the bench, and then Ronnie Mauricio still has an option, and you start him into the minor leagues, and I guess you go from there with the lineup. But then again, like, do you want Beatty rotting on the bench instead of just trading him? I don't know. I mean, but you could sell me on that idea now. Like Lars Nootbaar, I wasn't in love with the idea earlier in the offseason, but you could sell me on it because, again, I feel this team still has a need for a left-handed bat right now. I really just, and I get this hunch they're going to, whether it's a Nootbaar, whether it's Duran, because looking at the free agent market, I could tell you right now, there's not a lot left. In terms of the lefties left, Michael Conforto, no thanks.
Nope.
Luis Arias, please
Nope.
no. Nathaniel Lowe, I'm good. Max Kepler just got hit with a PED suspension. Jesse Winker,
Nope.
fun aura, fun clubhouse guy, no. Jason Hayward's an ancient fossil, I'm good. Adam Frazier, I'm good. MJ Melendez, I'm good. Mike Talkman, fun little piece. He does nothing more than, maybe hit for like a 270 average, but has like a 700 OPS to go with it. Dominic Smith, I'm good. Alex Verdugo, I'm good. Those are your lefties that are available still. So if you're going to get one, it comes from the trade market. And then again, if you look at the switch hitters available, Carlos Santana, ancient fossil. Dylan Carlson, a failed prospect. Ildemaro Vargas, no thank you. Jonah Heim, no thank you. Luis Rengifo, who I thought was signed, but no thank you. So if they're going with another bat, it's going to be the trade market or another right-handed batter. Maybe they bring in an IKF just as a super utility guy. Maybe they just randomly get David Fletcher. I don't know. I'm just spitballing names here. But to me, I don't know. I just think it's got to be a left-handed stick, but
Yeah, listen, I wouldn't mind, like, if it's a Lars Nootbaar or you're getting an Austin Hayes into this lineup, because I will be honest, I think for now, and this is like what we were talking about earlier with Tong and Benj, I think they want to let, and this is more bench talk, I think they want to let Benj over marinate a little bit in the minor leagues. And even then, listen, we love Tyrone Taylor. He's Roan. He's a hoopist. We love to see him hoop out there in center field. If I'm gonna make a prediction, I don't think he's on this roster by June, July. I think he's gonna get DFA'd. To which then you could allow, like, let's say you bring in a Nootbaar or a Hayes, one of those guys could now become the 4th outfielder, and then you're running with an outfield of Benj, Robert, Soto. Again, I love Tyrone Taylor. This is nothing against him. I see a world where that could happen, especially where they want to let Benj just over marinate. I mean, listen, if Tyrone Taylor is having a fantastic year, then obviously they're not going to DFA him. But I could just see a world where you start the year right now with Soto, Robert, Tyrone Taylor, and then let's say one of Nootbaar or Hayes. They're all playing relatively well, but Benj is absolutely crushing it in AAA, and then here comes Benj up, and you got to move one of those guys. Obviously, you're not getting rid of Robert. You're not getting rid of Soto. You're not getting rid of Hayes or Nootbaar, which you just brought in. That means there's got to be one odd man out. And I'm sorry, Nico. I'm sorry, Evan. I know you guys love Roan, but it's sometimes you just got to play those games. And but listen, listen, if that happens, that's a good thing because that means Ben just has forced his way up onto the major league roster.
True.
So,
And it means that they actually, if Austin Hayes is the guy they signed, then it means Austin Hayes is playing better than Taylor, which I refuse to believe that's possible. But yeah, you broke my heart. Why can't the Rangers be like the Mets? Because that requires a competent GM.
yeah,
That's why.
because the Rangers are run by ancient fossils, and the Mets know how to use computers. They know how to use analytics. They actually have forward thinking.
The geek from Harvard.
Yeah. What does he know?
The genius boy, the wonder boy, David Stearns.
But yeah, I mean, this is an interesting post, like from Isaac Gropin, because this is more just talking about the Tobias Myers thing. I mean, one and a half. Myers has one of the most electric fastballs in MLB in terms of pure IVB, but in 2025 it got even better. Gained .6 ticks of velo and topped out at 98.2. To maximize his potential, the Mets need to increase whiff and K rates by cutting fastball usage. His slider, cutter, and splitter all had better shapes last year. Using them more will let the fastball play as a true using them more will let the fastball play as more of a true put away pitch, which is something you said, Evan.
Yeah, so they're basically saying up the changeup usage.
Yeah, up the breaking stuff and lessen a little bit more on the fastball.
Get me on the coaching staff. I don't know what to tell you. No, but yeah, in all seriousness, yeah, I think it's just really a matter of finding a way to tunnel his pitches better. And, you get that going for him. Maybe you got yourself a sneaky piece in the bullpen, some sneaky skill at the back end of the bullpen potentially. And that'd be the best case scenario. I mean, if he puts up the numbers that he did as a reliever when he got transferred there in Milwaukee to one, that's a guy that could help you be like a good 7th, 8th inning guy. Not that I like to, sit here and play that game of, putting guys in an inning role just because baseball's so different now with that to where it's more situational. But yeah, he could be kind of that, bridge to the closer by committee because I still think that's how they're going to handle this, which hopefully it doesn't have to be that way. Hopefully Devin Williams ends up just taking the closer role, but you get Tobias Myers to maximize his tool set, moving to the back end of the bullpen, and it works out. Chris Drury wishes he was half the GM of Stearns. Yeah, he wishes that he was. Actually, I don't know if he wishes that because I don't know if he has a fucking brain. So I shouldn't even say that.
I will say this though, the Frederick Peralta jersey will have to be ordered pretty soon. I don't know which jersey it's going to be, whether it's the home away, the black one, or the alternate blue, but that jersey will have to be purchased.
Yeah, we got all the marketing now. I don't know what the Freddy fries. I don't know what they're gonna do marketing wise there. You got Boba Fett bobblehead day. You got the semen shakes. I mean, it's a marketing masterclass for Cohen. Way to make up losing the trumpets and
Freddie Mercury night. We could all sing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, that works. It's I don't know. He made up for losing Cheeto Bear and the squirrel, whatever else is lost at the stadium. The trumpets, like I said before. Now
no more polar burgers. What are we doing?
Fucking polar burgers. Get your semen shake and shut up and be fat and happy. It's just not going to be the same going to Citi Field and running the Shake Shack, not watching Pete Alonso play. That's the other thing I'm seeing online is everyone's just now saying, oh, well, imagine if they kept Pete Alonso with this lineup. Most of this wouldn't have happened if Pete Alonso stayed. You're missing the entire point.
Whatever.
But
Listen, you want to go watch Pete Alonso? Go get fucking MLB TV. You go watch Baltimore Oriole games. Like, I don't care. Like, again, I care about the name on the front of the jersey, the team that plays in Queens. Listen, love Pete, but what's done is done. It's over. It's done. Move on.
yeah,
I can't anymore.
and same with Diaz. Even like I was pissed about it. It's done. It's over with, and the team looks good the way it is right now. Again, I still want one more bet, but it looks good right now. But either way, do you have anything else to add to this? Because I think we covered about everything with this trade, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, hour and 10 minutes, just fantastic trade. Welcome Freddy Peralta. Welcome Tobias Myers to the New York Mets. Can't wait. Whether I mean, we'll obviously see who gets the ball on opening day. Whether it's Peralta, whether it's McLean. I would I would say right now, if I had to make a prediction, I'd say it's Peralta just because he's the proven guy. And listen, 2 years ago when the Mets played the Brewers on opening day,
Pantsed us.
yeah, we saw him pitch against us while we had to watch Jose Quintana take the ball in the mound. No offense to Jose Quintana, but that's going to be a nice little difference seeing an actual true ace take the bump on opening day. So yeah, obviously we'll see what happens. We'll see if any more moves get made. Obviously, we still have a couple more weeks to go before pitchers and catchers report, before spring training starts. Even we got the World Baseball Classic coming up soon. So yeah, that's exciting times. Also, because I totally forgot to mention it last night. Congratulations to Carlos Beltran on making it to the Hall of Fame, Cooperstown. Yeah. Hopefully he's coming in with the Mets hat there. And pretty soon, I would expect it. He's probably going to get his number 15 retired too at Citi Fields. And if that happens, I know we'll probably be there both celebrating Beltran. But yeah, I mean, exciting times. I am hyped. I am ready for baseball season, especially with the way that hockey team that we watch is playing. Give me baseball. Give me baseball season.
And then Rowan's gonna have to change his jersey number 2. Fuck you, Beltran. But yeah, congratulations to Beltran on making the Hall of Fame. Of course, like you said, hopefully he goes in with a Mets hat on, and we'll see if they end up retiring his number. Although according to Mike Puma, they can't because they have a day dedicated to the 86 Mets because there's only 81 home games. We can't do it any of the other 80 home games. Whatever. I'm not going to go on a fucking rant about that stupidity. But that is going to be it for us. Thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. One more time, the Mets acquire their aces. They get Freddy Peralta and Tobias Myers in exchange for Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat as the Mets made their next in a series of culture-changing moves. We will see you guys in the next one.